company's business strategy is formulated through a set of intertwined logical steps. After defining the vision, mission, and objectives for the company that stem from the general objectives at a corporate level, we carry out an external analysis of the market in order to identify the main threats and opportunities. This step is supported by models such as the 5 forces model and pest analysis. We should also carry out an internal analysis to understand what are the company's strengths and weaknesses as opposed to competitors. This time, we'll leverage the value chain model, possibly supported by our resource-based view. Strategic analysis is not over, though, since we need to match results of the two analyses, external and internal, to draw important conclusions guiding us in formulating our business strategy. This critical matching process is summarized by the SWOT analysis, where the acronym stands for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. The goal of the SWOT analysis is that of helping the decision maker to tap strengths in order to seize opportunities, and at the same time carry out defensive actions aimed at improving weaknesses and at protecting the company from threats. Indications coming from the SWOT analysis are used in devising strategic alternatives available to companies. Michael Porter proposes a generic classification of these alternatives, called generic competitive strategies. In order to create and sustain a competitive advantage, the company has to choose among a limited number of generic strategies, distinguishing themselves for type of advantage and competitive scope. Companies can try and achieve a cost advantage if aiming at efficiency, or advantage can be uniqueness and value when pursuing effectiveness. As for scope, the company can work both on the overall market and on one or more target segments, identified through the choice of adequate demand segmentation variables like gender, age, education level, or other more sophisticated elements like attitude and behavior. Operating on an overall market and trying to obtain cost advantage leads to the adoption of a cost leadership strategy. A cost leader aims at being the producer with the lowest cost on the market by leveraging cost drivers like scale economies, learning, or localization. The opposite generic strategy is that of differentiation, where you still work on a broad scope of action, but tap value drivers with a positive effect on price, like quality, timing, and service level. The company aims, therefore, at presenting its product or service as unique if compared to the other offered by competitors, thus avoiding a competition based solely on price pressure. If we identify different clusters of customers whose needs are homogeneous within the cluster but different across different clusters, we pursue a focused strategy on one or more target segments. Focusing can rely on cost or value, leading to a focused cost leadership or a focused differentiation. When it comes to generic competitive strategies, Porter has quite a draconian approach. He believes that these strategies cannot be pursued at the same time. So those who follow more than one generic strategy have a profitability below the average and risk to get stuck in the middle, as he writes. A company will have to select a single generic strategy, and that choice will have to be consistent with the value chain structure and competitive drivers characterizing it. Cost leadership will then be based on delta efficiency and differentiation on delta effectiveness. This rigid stance was criticized and reviewed by many scholars, underlying the fact that there are exceptions to the general rule, leading to hybrid strategies of cost leadership and differentiation. For example, there can be strong cost advantages enabling the company to have surplus resources for differentiation. Or again, the company can carry out radical changes in technology or organization, modifying the internal structure and offering opportunities in terms of efficiency and effectiveness. Once a company has formulated its whole business strategy based on one or more strategic alternatives coming from the Swot and aligned with an overall orientation provided by Porter's generic strategy, this strategy should be implemented in a business model through an adequate execution. Sometimes this is a very challenging step, as planning gets tested against reality and misalignments may emerge. Considering these misalignments and the differences between performances expected and the performance obtained pertains to the control phase, ending the strategy formulation process and starting a feedback cycle that feeds future planning.